Good evening, everyone. At the outset, I would like to congratulate the organizer for this wonderful evening session. I am going to talk on recent updates on tuberculosis. What I am going to talk in next 25 minutes is regarding what are the advancement has been done as far as the treatment is concerned, whether the treatment, the diagnostics are concerned, and the prevention is concerned. From treatment point of view, it may be either in the drug-resistant TB or drug-sensitive TB. Various molecular tests which are available right now for the early diagnostics and the prevention. If you look at the preventions, we don't have much more in upgrades. Still, the BCG is the only vaccine available for the prevention, apart from the other infection control. We know that there is not a 100% effective vaccine, and efficacy varies from 0 to 80%. However, we have two sets of vaccines available in the phase 3 trial. Maybe in the future, we might have something for the prevention. If you look at the advancement in the treatment part is concerned, we have either drug-resistant TB or drug-sensitive TB. First, we look at the drug-resistant TB. Is there any molecules are available, or is the pipeline, or is the new strategies available to treat the MDR TB? So this is basically a mycobacterial cell wall, and I am just describing the 5 molecules which are either approved or in the pipeline. First one is bidacquerine, which inhibits the ATP synthesis. Second is delamanid, which inhibits the cell synthesis and the respiration in the mycobacterial cell. Third is pseudoxanthine, which is a linezolid analog. Fourth is PA824, that is butyromide. The fifth one is SQ109, that is ethambutol analog. Let's look one by one. The bidacquerine basically inhibits the ATP synthesis, and that is how its mechanism of action. Now, this drug is approved by US FDA in 2012 for MDR-TB. Unfortunately, it is not available in Indian market. The doses are 400 mg daily for first 2 weeks and then thrice weekly for 22 weeks. If you look at the sputum conversion rate, is much more than as compared to the standard regimen, and there is no cross-resistance with the other antituberculous drugs. There is some problem with the bidacquerine. It can cause prolonged QT interval, and that is why we have to be very cautious when you are using in a cardiac patients or those patients who are taking the drugs which can cause prolonged QT interruption. However, there is no adverse drug reaction with or any drug-drug interaction with other anti-TB drugs. Even in the US, it has been approved. These are reserved drugs for those patients who are not able to take the standard current regimen, or there is no probably proper effect. The second is delamanid. It inhibits the macrolic acid synthesis and respiration in bacterial cell wall. Again, it is approved drug, but it is approved in the European Commission, and it is approved for the MDR-TB in adults. Again, it is to be given for 100 mg BD for 24 weeks. Sputum conversion rate is again more as compared to the standard regimen. However, in the US as well as in India, it is not available. We know that we are using linezolid as a part of XDR regimen. We are not using as in the part of MDR regimen, but we are using in XDR, or sometimes if we have only few drugs are available to treat the very resistant TB. Linezolid has its own problem. When we are using more than 4 to 6 weeks of therapy, there is one or some side effects come, either in the form of anemia, leukopenia, thrombocytopenia, combination of these, myelosuppression, as well as lactic acidosis, or sometimes non-specific complaints of anorexia, vomiting, weight loss. So, the pseudoxanthine is a linezolid analog. It is a better antimicrobial activity and safety profile than the linezolid. There is no drug-drug interaction with other antituberculous drugs or even antiretroviral drugs. It has a potential to shorten the therapy. That is very important. However, it is currently under the phase 2 clinical trial. Another molecule is SQ109, that is analog of ethambutol. Again, we know that ethambutol is a first-line drug. It has some problem. While the analog of ethambutol can be used as a part of sensitive TB as well as in MDR-TB, the sputum conversion rate is again faster. It has a synergistic activity with other antituberculous drugs like first-line drugs, and there is a low bacterial mutation rate. This it has a very high genetic barrier. There is a very low potential to develop resistance. PA24, that is a very promising drug. Predominant is the name. currently undergoing phase 2 and 3 trials. It is a potent bactericidal and sterilizing action. It is very well tolerated drug. It has a synergistic activity with the moxifloxacin pyrazinamide, and there is a one trial going on which combines moxifloxacin, pyrazinamide and this pyrazinamide for 6 months of therapy for MDRT, and that is maybe in the future we have some sort of smaller regimen, smaller molecules, minimum molecules, and for short duration therapy for MDRT. It has a definite potential to shorten the treatment. There is a no significant drug interaction because it doesn't affect the cytochrome P450 system. It is useful as far as the antiretroviral drugs are concerned. There is no drug interaction for HIV patients. Can we have some novel combination to treat MDR-TB? There are 3 important trials going on. There are still results are not there. It is ongoing trials. First one is the NC001 trial that covered the 4 drugs: bedaquiline, moxifloxacin, P824, that is pyrazinamide, and PZA, that is pyrazinamide. Another is replacing the moxifloxacin to the clofazimine, the same other 3 molecules. Third one is next study, that is again a phase 3 study, where the 24 months current regimen, what we are using, is compared with 6 month regimen of given molecules. And again, these are in the ongoing way. Maybe in the 3 or 4 years, the result will come out. Coming to the drug sensitivity, is there any some innovation or some sort of things which have occurred to revive our antituberous regimen? We know that we are using moxifloxacin as a part of MDR-TB, and many of us are using it. But can we use it as a first line therapy in a sensitive TB? Because people have tried to replace the ethambutol INH by moxifloxacin in a first line antituberous drug, because it has a potential to shorten the duration of treatment. So these are the two concepts: whether we can shorten the duration of treatment from 6 months for pulmonary TB to 4 months in a first line regimen, and can we replace the toxic drug like ethambutol and INH by the moxifloxacin. Let's see what are the. We have important 2 trials, and the results are depressing. One is remote TB trial, where 3 arms were there. The first arm, they used the current regimen, that is 2 HREZ for 2 months, then HR for another 4 months. In second arm, they have replaced the ethambutol by moxifloxacin, and they have taken to HRZL for 2 months, and then HRM for another 2 months. In the third arm, they have replaced the INH by moxifloxacin. The results, it is a multi-centered, multinational trial, including India. The results are very depressing. What is the conclusion of this trial? Shortening of treatment for is not effective. So we can't cut short the treatment to 4 months by using this moxifloxacin. Before 2 years, we were talking a lot about this trial, that this is very promising trial and we have very wonderful results. And we might cut short the treatment to 4 month duration by replacing the moxifloxacin, but this is not the case. However, definitely moxifloxacin containing regimen has a better bactericidal activity as compared to other. There is no significant adverse events difference in the adverse event. So this trial suggested that still the current standard of regimen is 6 month duration therapy, and that is again conventional to HREZ, not the moxifloxacin. The another important trial which looked at the shortening of the duration of treatment for pulmonary TB for 6 months to 4 months. And again, I am just reading the conclusion last line. It is inferior to the standard 6 month regimen. So there is no way you have to give 6 months of therapy in current scenario. The another important trial I would like to bring you in mind, that STAND trial, stands for shortening the treatment by advancing the novel drugs. We know that in MDR-TB we have to give a lot of drugs. The treatment duration is 18 to 24 months, and it is expensive, definitely expensive. Instead of that, if we use the P824 moxifloxacin PZA, it can be only for 6 months duration. And this is the trial which is ongoing, and maybe in the future we have some expecting some good results. Now coming to the innovation, what the Calida Pharma has done, we know that the rifampicin at a conventional dose induces the cytochrome P450 system, and also it causes the overexpression of P-glycoprotein P. Now what it means is, by inducing the cytochrome P450 system, it can increase the metabolism. By overexpression of PGP, what is the role of PGP? It effluxes out or kicks out the molecule from cell to the outside. So these are the 2 disadvantages. So the rifampicin in a conventional load might have the limitation in form of low and variable bioavailability, subtherapeutic serum rifampicin level, poor GA and hepatic intolerance, multiple adverse drug interaction. This is again when we are using a conventional dose, it might be underdosing, and that will be result in slow response and not adherence to the treatment. To overcome this limitation, there is a molecule which is known as a picorin, which inhibits the cytochrome system enzymes and prevent the overexpression of PGP. So by combining the low dose of rifampicin with along this molecule, we can overcome out some of the limitations of the rifampicin. It helps in maintaining the serum rifampicin level. It improves the response, so there is a more sputum conversion rate and reduces the GI side effect. By reducing the GI side effect, the patient tolerates well and adheres to the treatment. So if you look at head-to-head comparison from rifampicin conventional dose to Rizorin, Rizorin has a high and sustained serum, improved GI intolerance, reduces the risk of hepatitis and high treatment adherence rate. So these are the benefits: better tolerability and improved pricing compliance, which cause the lower treatment failure rates, reduce the relapse rate, and definitely prevent the resistance. So where is the place of Rizorin in current scenario? It can be used where the condition knows to decrease the rifampicin absorption. It can be used patients who are not likely to tolerate the conventional dose of rifampicin. It may be ideal to switch over when the patient has a hepatotoxicity. Now we want to replace the therapy. We can use this Rizorin as a low dose containing rifampicin. It may be useful option in those patients who are already in a high risk, like alcoholic patient, elderly, malnourished, hepatitis B. So they have more chance to develop hepatotoxicity where we can use it. So this is basically a therapeutic or treatment path. What are the advancement has been done? Now let's look at the advancement in the TB diagnostic. This is very crucial. If you diagnose the TB early, you can put the patient on early, you can convert the sputum conversion rate early, and you can prevent the transmission. So what are the advancement that has occurred in TB diagnostic? We know that the tuberculosis diagnosis is based on three main parts. Either you have histopathology, which shows the Peyronie granuloma, and there is definite demonstration of AFB in that particular. AFB on smear examination. Third is TB culture, and these are the three gold standard along with the molecular test, which can confirm your diagnosis. Otherwise, empirical AKT can be given on the basis of fever, weight loss, anorexia, some sort of all these things. Abdominal lymph nodes, Peyronie lymph nodes on radiology, excess suggestive of cavity. So these all are 99.9% diagnosis. 100% diagnosis can be achieved only by these four things. Histopathology, there is no advancement. It is still the same as was previously. AAP on smear examination, we have a luxury or microbiologists use immunofluorescence and concentration method, which can pick up early even AAP with a very minor load. So this is the advantage. TB culture, there are two methods, liquid media and solid media. Solid media is again the older method, like LG media. Many of the laboratories still uses that because they have not facility. In our setup, we have a liquid culture media, there is either BACTEC or MG. What is the advantage of liquid culture? It gives result within a few days. So it is within 2 weeks. While the LG media, it takes 4 to 6 weeks. If you look at the molecular test, which is the revolution in the last few years, first test I would like to describe is GeneXpert. There is a GeneXpert MTB-RAF assay. Now what is the GeneXpert? It's basically a rapid, fully automated nucleic acid amplification test. The results are within 2 hours. You have to just put your sample into the machine, and within 2 hours they will give you the results. What the result they will give you? 2 results. Whether the MTB complex is present or not, and along with that, they will show you whether the rifampicin is resistant or not. So this is the biggest advantage. If somebody has taken the drug very erratically or irregularly, if you do a GeneXpert on a first day, you can come to know whether the rifampicin is resistant or not. And you can have some idea that rifampicin resistance is almost equivalent to the MDR, because rifampicin resistance usually occurs next to the isoniazid. So you can have some idea and you can plan your treatment right from the first day rather than waiting for the cultures to come in the 4 to 6 weeks and then DST. So this is very wonderful test with a very high specificity and sensitivity. The results they usually give in a form of MTB detected and rifampicin resistant, whether it is a presence or not. The second most important is LPA, that is line probe assay. There are 2 line probe assays are available for diagnosis. the genotype MTBDR plus. Again, what is this line probe assay? Basically, it's again genetic test. You just have, they will give you a result within 1 or 2 days. It can be, basically, ideally it was designed to put on after the culture is positive. So once the culture is positive within 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, then take the sample, put a probe, you can have an idea whether the patient is MDR or not. So it will detect the resistance to both isoniazid as well as rifampicin. Again, nowadays, though it is not approved, we are using upfront. When we have a very strong suspicion, then we can put take a sample of sputum. If smear is positive, then we put a LPA, and that will detect both RPO plus PETG and INH genes. So it is simultaneously detect the both MTB complex as well as resistant to isoniazid and rifampicin. Results are very rapid within 1 to 2 days. So it helps in diagnosis of MDR. The second line probe, this is basically the result how they give us in a strip. The second line probe is a genotype MTBDR SL+. So SL is basically for second line. So again it is similar method, help to detect the resistance to second line drugs because it detects the 3 mutations. Guide, that is fluoroquinolones, RRS and EMBG. EMBG for ethambutol, RRS gene for amyloid. So it will give you a 3 drug resistant pattern. Whether the MTB complex which has been detected is resistant to fluoroquinolones, amyloid and ethambutol. So we can have a from very first day or within 1 or 2 days, you can have an idea. Patient is taking antituberous treatment since last 3 years. Some sort of first line, second line. Now what to do? To wait for the culture to come for 4 weeks, 6 weeks, then put a DST which takes another 15 to 20 days. So 2 months are wasted. And during these 2 months, patient transmits this strain to so many patients. So MDR strain will be transmitted to so many patients. In the contrary, on the very first or second day, if you have idea, if you put the LPA, MTBDR or MTBDR SL, then you can have idea whether the patient is XDR or MDR. And this is definitely, if first the one injectable and fluoroquinolones are resistant, then it confirms to the XDR TB. However, all these LPA are not alternative to DST. So you have to keep in mind that once we have put the LPA, we have diagnosed MDR or XDR, still we require culture and DST. That is must. Another important LPA is to differentiate between the mycobacterium tuberculosis and non-tuberculous mycobacteria. Again, we are using it upfront in many patients. Smear is positive, culture is positive, NAP test shows it is MTM or non-tuberculous mycobacteria. If you put this particularly LPA, you will differentiate all the non-tuberculous mycobacteria, whether it is Ephesus, Kansas, Fortune, Chironi, whatsoever it is there. Within 1 day, they will give you the idea and you can plan your treatment accordingly. There are two another important diagnostic tests still not in the current practice. One is LAMP and one is urinary LAMP assay. I would like to share some of the points regarding urinary LAMP assay. It is urinary lipoaraminomenon level. Lipoaraminomenon is basically a protein or molecule which is released from the mycobacterium cell wall and it can be detected in urine. So it is a point of care test, just like malaria RDT, rapid diagnosis method. You can diagnose just putting some sort of urine on a well, and you can have some later probe, and you can diagnose TB. Again, it is not validated right now, but it may be in the near future. It is really a wonderful test. The last two slides, coming to the EGRA test or interferon gamma release assay. Two different tests, TB Gold and T-Spot TB. We are familiar with the different TB Gold test. I just would like to say one word: never use this test for diagnosis of TB. Many times, most of the other faculties, apart from the physician and pulmonologists, surgeons, gynecologists, they use frequently. Quantiferon TB Gold positive, they put on AKT, patient end up with hepatitis, they comes to us, whether it is true or not. So basically, quantiferon TB Gold is not a diagnostic of active TB. It just give you idea the patient is suffering from latent tuberous bacterial infection. So it is a diagnostic test for LTBI, not for the active TB. So keep in mind. The second is TB IgG IgM. I know that it is already banned, so laboratory cannot perform it. But it is so time it was performed, and people has used antituberous drug like so many times. particularly those who are practicing gynecology, just send the IgG, IgM, anything is positive, refer to the physician for to start the AKG. So this test is banned, so this cannot be used. So dear friends, to summarize, that rapid diagnosis TB is possible with the molecular test which I would describe we are using routinely, so we have a wide experience of that. Newer drugs definitely have potential to improve the outcomes in MDR TB. For drug sensitive TB, minimum 6 months is still the gold standard, and definitely Risorin at many places can helpful as a better tolerated drug and as compared to the conventional rifampicin. Thank you very much for listening.